afternoon on this Friday, February 6th. I'm Yumna Naufal. These are today's headlines. Jordan says airstrikes against ISIS are only the start of its retaliation for the burning of one of its pilots, vowing to eradicate the jihadists. Authorities foil a plot by militants from Syria to create a passage to the West Bekaa in Lebanon, also the south and the north, to establish what they say are their plan to take over Lebanese territories. And a delegation from Hezbollah holds talks with Free Patriotic Movement leader MP Michel Aoun to mark the 9th anniversary of the signing of the MOU between the two sides. Dozens of Jordanian fighter jets have bombed the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant targets, according to the military. It said it was pledging to keep up the attacks until the armed group is defeated. Jordanian Foreign Minister Nasser Joudeh told CNN on Friday that the raids now expanded into Iraq. Jordan joined the U.S.-led military alliance against ISIS in September, but up until recently was believed to have only bombed sites in Syria. Thursday's airstrikes come a day after King Abdullah II pledged to avenge the death of captured Jordanian military pilot Muaz al-Qasasbeh, who was burned alive by ISIS members. The strikes are the beginning of our retaliation, Joudeh told CNN, adding that his country was going after ISIS with everything it has. State TV showed footage of the strikes, which target training centers and weapons storage sites, including one which set off a large ball of fire after impact. U.S. President Barack Obama condemned those who seek to use religion as a rationale for carrying out violence around the world. Obama singled out ISIS and calling the militants a death cult, as well as those responsible for last month's attacks in Paris and deadly assault on a school in Pakistan.
We also see faith being twisted and distorted, used as a wedge, or worse, sometimes used as a weapon. From a school in Pakistan to the streets of Paris, we have seen violence and terror perpetrated by those who profess to stand up for faith, their faith. Profess to stand up for Islam, but in fact are betraying it. We see ISIL, a brutal, vicious death cult that, in the name of religion, carries out unspeakable acts of barbarism, terrorizing religious minorities like the Yazidis, subjecting women to rape as a weapon of war, and claiming the mantle of religious authority for such actions.
Dozens of Syrian regime airstrikes on an opposition-held area near Damascus have killed at least 82 people, a monitor group said, in the deadliest such onslaught since November. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, which relies on witnesses on the ground, it's also a UK-based monitor, said the new toll in the airstrikes on the eastern Ghouta region included at least 18 children. The regime assault, which also killed 16 rebel fighters, involved more than 60 airstrikes as well as surface-to-surface missiles. It is the deadliest aerial attack by government forces since November 25th, when 95 people were killed in airstrikes on Raqqa, the self-proclaimed capital of the ISIS group. Residents say the capital was quiet this morning and that the mortar and rocket fire appeared to be over. In Lebanon, authorities have foiled a plot by militants from Syria to create a passage to the West Bekaa, the south and the north, to establish their planned emirate on Lebanese territories. Authorities have intercepted conversations and seized documents from extremist groups that revealed a plot to open the passage to the West Bekaa area through the Majd al-Anjar Valley and to the south so that they could reach areas where Palestinian camps are located. The plot included the establishment of a route to the northern area of Qalamun. Army Chief General Jean Ahwajeh said in October last year that the militants from Syria want to ignite a civil war and create a passage to Lebanon's coastline by linking the Syrian Qalamun mountains with Arsail on the border and the northern Lebanese town of Akkar. Hezbollah official Mahmoud Khmati expressed hope that the party's dialogue with the Future movement, as well as developments in the Middle East and worldwide, would lead to the election of a new president. There are signs, he said, there is a possibility of a breakthrough in the presidential election. Khmati told reporters after heading a Hezbollah delegation that met with Free Patriotic Movement leader Michel Aoun in Rabie. Kmati reiterated Hezbollah's support for Aoun as its presidential candidate. Lebanon has been without a head of state since President Michel Sleiman's term ended, with lawmakers failing to elect a successor due to lack of consensus. Kmati said he updated Aoun, so the results so far of the ongoing Hezbollah future dialogue. His visit was on the occasion of the 9th anniversary of a memorandum of understanding between the FPM and Hezbollah. General Security Chief Magistral General Abbas Ibrahim visited the headquarters of the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, known as UNIFIL, to extend his condolences over the death of a Spanish peacekeeper last week. Commander Magistral General Luciano Portolano at the mission's base in the southern town of Nakura, Lebanon is committed to Resolution 1701, Ibrahim said, in response to Israeli accusations that Hezbollah violated the resolution which ended the 2006 war. Portolano also expressed confidence that all sides were committed to 1701. Francisco Javier Soria Toledo was killed last Wednesday during the Israeli military's exchange of fire with Hezbollah near the disputed Sheba Farms area. The deadliest escalation on the frontier since the 2006 war came after Hezbollah fired missiles on Israeli army convoys, leaving 2 soldiers dead. Ibrahim earlier inspected the base of general security at the Naura crossing. He was briefed on the work of general security agents over there. Another person meeting the Pope is Maronite Patriarch Bishara Rai. He held a meeting with the Pope Francis at the Vatican. Rai is expected to head a Mass at 7 p.m. on Monday at the Maronite College in Rome on the occasion of St. Maroon. The Patriarch traveled on Tuesday to the Vatican on a 3-week visit to take part in the meeting of the College of Cardinals. He is reportedly meeting with the director of the Department of the Middle East and North Africa at the Foreign French Ministry, Jean-François Giraud. At the Vatican, talks are expected to focus on the presidential deadlock in Lebanon, and the French diplomat concluded the 2-day visit to Lebanon as his country is seeking to press officials to end the presidential stalemate and ease tensions in the country. Inspectors from the Ministry of Health sealed with red wax 3 butcheries in central Bekaa for failing to acquire the minimum health standards. 2 butcheries in Al Faida area in the eastern city of Zahle were raided by the inspectors, who decided to shut them down after issuing several warnings for their owners to rectify the conditions of their butcheries. The National News Agency said that the owners of Louise and the Dahout butcheries were warned several times before the Health Ministry was compelled to shut it down. The news agency also said that the Bekaa butchery was ordered to close as the owners, who were warned there 3 times before, were breeding and raising birds. Health inspectors also issued a warrant against Al Mukhtar butchery in the same area for not acquiring a legal license, failing to commit to the personal hygiene standards, and storing meat and sausages without an expiration date. Coming up next, 1 in 2 people in the UK will get cancer at some point in their lives. We have the new studies here right after this. Welcome back. You're watching the 4:20 o'clock news here on Future Television. The residents of the beleaguered Ukrainian city of Donetsk were very doubtful that upcoming talks between Russian President Vladimir Putin and the leaders of France and Germany would do very much to end the fighting in eastern Ukraine. The hostilities between Russian-backed separatist rebels in the east and Ukrainian forces have intensified sharply over the past 2 weeks, bringing the total number of casualties since the conflict started last April to over 5,500. After meeting with Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko on Thursday, German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President François Hollande are due to hold talks with Putin and the Kremlin later in the day to discuss their new peace plan proposal. But disenchanted Donetsk residents had little hope for the success of the new European peace initiative. And the United States, on its side, says it will continue to support diplomatic negotiations to bring the conflict in Ukraine to an end, according to White House spokesman Josh Earnest. Speaking to journalists in Washington, D.C., Earnest said President Barack Obama's administration was encouraging and supportive on ongoing efforts to find a peaceful resolution.
The United States has been saying for some time that it will that it's a diplomatic negotiation that's required to bring this conflict in Ukraine to an end. That this is not something that's going to be solved or resolved militarily, but rather through diplomatic negotiation. So we certainly are encouraging and supportive of of ongoing efforts to try to find a peaceful diplomatic resolution to the conflict in Ukraine. One concern that we have, however, is that previous diplomatic efforts have resulted in agreements that the Russians and the separatists that they back in eastern Ukraine didn't live up to. That there were commitments made in the context of the Minsk agreement that was signed, I believe, back in September. Those commitments included things like withdrawing all troops and weapons from eastern Ukraine and establishing effective international monitoring of the international border between Ukraine and Russia. So we're going to continue to be supportive of ongoing efforts to try to find a diplomatic resolution to this situation, while at the same time we're going to continue to urge the Russians and the separatists that they back to live up to the diplomatic agreements that they make.
Lawmakers in the Serbian part of Bosnia passed a controversial law that allows authorities to fine people who post offensive content on social networks, a move rights activists have labeled as limiting freedom of expression. The law was passed by a vote of 46-0 after opposition lawmakers left the session in protest. One lawmaker said the region, Republika Srpska, can now change its name to North Republika Srpska, drawing a parallel to the harsh censorship in North Korea. The regional parliament extended the definition of public space in the existing public order law to include social networks. Under public pressure, lawmakers agreed to exclude criticism of the government from the bill. This is a story creating a lot of controversy in the United States. NBC Nightly News anchor Brian Williams apologized for incorrectly claiming as recently as last week that he rode on a helicopter that came under enemy fire when he was reporting in Iraq in 2003. Instead, Williams said he was in another helicopter trailing a Chinook that actually was hit. He apologized on Nightly News for getting it wrong. The embarrassing admission came after a story in the Stars and Stripes newspaper pointing out the discrepancy. Williams had made the claim on the air last Friday during a story about Tim Turpak, an Army officer who he had befriended when Turpak was assigned to protect the NBC crew. Williams reported on Nightly News that he had gone with Turpak to a New York Rangers hockey game. They were introduced to the audience by the public address announcer, who also repeated the claim that Williams' helicopter had been hit. 1 in 2 people in the UK will get cancer at some point in their lives, according to new forecasts by the UK's leading cancer charity. Cancer Research UK say the increase is mainly due to people living longer, but the number of people surviving the disease has also grown. According to forecasts published in the British Journal of Cancer on the 3rd of February 2015, the lifetime risk of cancer for people born since 1960 is now over 50%. The lifetime cancer risk for women is lower, 47.55%, than that of men. Men is 53.5%, while the combined lifetime risk is 50.5% for both. In 1980, the combined risk was 27.2%. In 1990, it was 32.7%, and in 2000, it was 37.1%. In 2010, it was 41.8%. So as you can see, the percentages have been growing very steadily. Researchers say they can't just rely on medical science, they also have to manage lifestyle. Smoking, drinking, exercise, and overweight and obesity could all be part of what leads people to cancer. And on that note, this marks the end of our bulletin. Now for a reminder of our top stories. Jordan says airstrikes against the Islamic State group are only the start of its retaliation for the burning of one of its pilots, vowing to eradicate the jihadists. Authorities foil a plot by militants from Syria to create a passage to the West Bekaa in Lebanon to what they say establish their own plans to take over Lebanese territories. A delegation from Hezbollah holds talks with Free Patriotic Movement leader MP Michel Aoun to mark the 9th anniversary of the signing of the MOU between the two sides. Those are your Friday headlines live on Future Television. I'm Yumna Naufal signing off. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you again tomorrow.